Hello there, and welcome. I think I need today to apologize first because yesterday's episode was slightly out of focus, which I'm telling myself was soft focus. But I didn't have time to redo it because I procrastinated and I was out of time. I really did have to get my episode up in order to stay true to my goal. But I think I can actually use that experience as an illustration of the value of homework and the thorny elements of it at the same time. Most teachers will think of homework really as practice. In fact, when my brothers were young, there was a band teacher in their town who came up with this idea that he would send home a schedule to the parents of his students, asking them to sign off when their children had practiced their music assignments. This was intended, I suppose, or I theorize, to get the parents involved with encouraging their young people to do the practicing so that their musicianship would improve. Now, any of us that have studied music, hello, know that practice is really, really significant for students of music. It's simply one of those things you have to do. And if you don't, even the most gifted of students who doesn't practice never fully realizes the potential of what they could do if they spent the effort to practice. And homework for many of us, that's what it is. It's the practice of the skill or content we're teaching. So, how can I put this in a slightly different way that might make more poetic sense? And when I thought back to when I had students every day and they objected to my homework, I think mentioned at different times that I had students write 4 times a week, but they turned in the complete set of 4 on a particular day. And they got to choose which of the 4 I graded. And then I just checked to see if the other 4 were there. And students often objected to this because they considered it a lot of, quote, busy work, unquote. First of all, my students were never really that busy. I have to be honest with you. There were times that I gave them very challenging assignments, but even the most busy of my students wasn't stretching beyond his or her limits, absolutely. So, what I told them is to think of the writing in English as like running laps in athletics. Lots and lots of athletic pursuits require conditioning. And conditioning is that repetitive, boring training that every athlete needs to engage in to reach full potential, but is not very interesting. It's the burden of greatness. And so the way I would explain it to my students is, look, you need to run these laps. I'm really only going to check you once every 4 laps. I will look to see if you run the laps, but I'm really going to examine your work 1 time out of 4 of those laps. And for many students that made a good deal of sense to them because they were athletes themselves and they knew that it really wasn't possible for me as their teacher to check absolutely everything and them to get enough training. So I understand this frustration of homework being assigned and then not being done. By the way, that band teacher who had parents sign off on whether their students did their practicing, one of the very Christian women in the town always signed the paper even though she knew darn well her kids didn't practice. This is a problem of ethics, but I will not explore it right now. But it gives you an idea of how long this problem of dealing with falsehoods and laziness and outright disdain teachers deal with. So, there are some teachers who've suggested we shouldn't actually run the labs. We shouldn't have homework. Well, give them the homework, tell them they need to do it, but the only thing that should count for the grade are the tests. And I can understand that inclination if you really, 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 really hate checking homework and you really, 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 really hate kids trying to cheat, then tests might feel more attractive because they're monitored and you're right there for them. So I want to suggest that that's not really going to work for most kids either. The practice is important and our attention to that practice is important as well. So you might try what I did, have them do assignments and then sample from those assignments which ones were actually going to earn the grade. That's a possible way to do it. Another way to do it might be if you do assign problems, say in a math class or a science class, if they're chemistry problems, you're assigning physics problems, science reading, that sort of thing. One of the things, one of the things you can do is focus on particular problems in the set and say, look, I'm going to have you do these 30 problems because everybody in the program has to do these 30 problems. These are the required problems. The ones I want you to do in front of me are this one, and this one. You choose the key problems that test the key skills, and you have them complete those problems in front of you. And one way to do that is simply have them put them on the front page and then initial them as they complete them. And then they can finish the rest of the problems at their leisure when the stuff is due back in. Now, they might cheat that way, but if you encourage them to think about those other problems as similar and they've already got this problem worked out, and tell them that you're focused on them learning, not on them being perfect, then maybe they'll actually give it a try. To be honest with you, I was not tempted to cheat on math problems when I was a math student. I liked them. The same way somebody might like Sudoku or a crossword, I liked math problems. So getting 30 math problems did not feel burdensome to me. I'd jump right in, I'd get them done. Lots of times I'd get them done before the class hour was done. We always had a few minutes at the end of the class hour, and I would just buzzsaw through those babies. And of course some students will be like that, but even the ones that aren't like that might benefit from key problem solving. The final thing that I want to say about making it practical, this way that you examine homework, is try to find quick ways for you to check for excellence. And sometimes it's as simple as splitting up the homeworks and saying, okay, you, just going through and having each student do some solving. That's old school, right? Sending a kid to the board to solve the problem is old school, but that can work. Having a kid memorize something and recite it, that can work. I've had kids try to cheat on that, but that's not necessarily necessary. A lot of times reciting something from memory can actually improve their memory skills. And let's face it, even with their cell phones in front of them, it's a good thing to have things memorized, to have them right there in your mind so that you can just grab them, that they're just present there. And it makes you feel more solidly in control of your learning when you can do that. Just like a student who's practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced that free throw, when the game comes and they've taught their muscles and they've taught their body to shoot that free throw, sometimes it happens in seeming effortless way. But what's really happened is they've learned it so thoroughly it feels like magic. That's it for today. I hope you have a glorious rest of the day, and I hope you see me again, you gorgeous people.